They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, your hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind, no legend They just ship a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail, we players sail soon. All hands to KLRN Radio, setting sail for Treasure Island, March 2026!
Celebrity designer Jeff Lewis is back with Hollywood House Lift.
I'm excited to be working with new clients.
I'm not getting rid of that.
I hope I never see you both again.
An all-new season.
Those have to go. That has to go.
From oh, wow,
It's been an actual nightmare.
to oh, wow.
This is such an upgrade.
With celebrities like Josh Duhamel, Christina Ricci, and Gina Rodriguez.
Dazzle me, Jeff.
It looks like Chuck E. Cheese.
Stream an all-new season of Hollywood House Lift with Jeff Lewis, now streaming on Freevee.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards.
Oops.
Alarm clock barking like it's got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rich like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So, suck it. Thank God it's Friday, punching out loud. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, working way, it ain't owning me. So raise them up high, let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday, that's all I know. HR in the break room sounding like a preacher, talking about culture, smiles, and being team players. Clipboard dreams on the fluorescent light, selling hours of my life just to make it to Friday night. Got dirt on my jeans, grease on my hands, clock moreover than quality plans. But when that bell rings, it's a holy sound. Feel like chains hit the floor when it echoes around. I ain't lazy, I just work my fill. If rest is a sin, guess I always will. Thank God it's Friday, punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait, it ain't on to me. So raise 'em up high, let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday, that's all I know. Boss can have Monday, God on Sunday, but Friday night's mine, I ain't giving it away. I earned this beer, I earned this pay, earned every sip I'm about to take. Thank God it's Friday, punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday, cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, work and wait, it ain't on to me. So raise 'em up high, let the whistle blow. Thank God.
And welcome into the final Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I hope everybody's having a great Friday so far. I know I am, because I woke up to liberal weeping and gnashing of teeth. Because every time they think they're going to get him, every time, things break his way. I don't know how he does it, I'll be honest. I really don't. I'm not even trying to be cute about it or anything else at this point, because I honestly don't understand how this man manages to do most of what he does. Gets all the left in a tizzy and freaking out. I mean, hell, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Chuck Schumer was in the well of the Senate talking about, oh my God, we're in the middle of this war and Donald Trump doesn't even know how to get us out of it. And then, so they're all hitching their hopes to sky high gas prices, sky high food prices, and everything else for the midterms while we watch so weird things are happening, and we're going to get into all this stuff in just a minute. But I do want to officially say welcome into the program. If you can't tell, we have a lot to talk about today. I'm not even sure we're going to get through all of it because unfortunately I was dealing with something and didn't realize it was already 2 minutes past show open. So we may go a little bit over to try to get through notes, but since I only have an hour break before the next one, we may not get into everything, but if not, I may try to bring some of it up in the weekend news roundup because it's all going to kind of be the same thing anyway. So yeah, in case you haven't figured it out yet, buckle up, kids, because we got a lot to get through today. So we're going to start with a story that ought to have every American paying attention, because when you have a local prosecutor deciding she can haul in a federal immigration agent for doing his job, that's not just another political spat. That's a direct collision between local progressive activism. We're going to get more into that progressive stuff as we go today too, and the authority of the federal government. So then after that, we'll get into Clarence Thomas down at UT Austin, where he laid out in terms so plain even the media can't pretend not to understand them, why progressivism is fundamentally at odds with the principles this country was founded on. Hey, you mean somebody besides me is saying that? It's funny. And we also have this. So Grisolini, Governor Gavin Newsom, had a little adventure in self-promotion where what was marketed as what was supposed to be a best-selling memoir looks more like a whole lot more like a PAC-assisted political rollout, kind of like what happened with Kami Lama. So, just to make so I did this to show you guys the pacing today, because at that point we'll be in the back half of the first hour, because at that point we've got a lot of stuff to talk about in Oklahoma. So there's a couple of different Oklahoma-centric segments today, because there's moving and shaking happening here too, and I don't mean just because we frack. Anyway, so by the time we hit the back half of the first hour, we're going to be going local because Oklahoma lawmakers have now sent voter ID constitutional amendment to the August ballot. We're going to get into that a little bit. And then in hour two, we have a lot to talk about with Iran because, as I said, if you woke up around the same time I did this morning, you woke up to news that oil prices were plummeting, the market was surging, and even Iran says, "Hey, we're done, Uncle. We're going to open the strait." Now, this doesn't mean the fight is over, and we'll get into more details after as we go on. But like I said, we got a full plate for you today, so stay right where you are, except for during the breaks. Hopefully, get up, stretch your legs, grab a drink, maybe smoke a little bit of what helps you think whenever we do the music breaks. But hopefully you come right back. But let's get started because, like I said, lots of things to get into and not much time to get into them. And yes, Denny, I see you. I don't really know what to do when the intro is playing, and I decided to turn the camera on because since I play the whole thing, I got to do something. But I like the song too much to cut it short. So I just decided to start doing the Muppet dance. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So, for kids, when you grew up watching the Muppets, you can only see the top half of them and they just over-exaggerate. Yeah, so that's kind of where that came from. And people make fun of me for it all the time. I don't care anymore, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so of course, again, going into what's happening in Minnesota. So a Hennepin County prosecutor has charged ICE agent Gregory Donald Morgan Jr. with felony assault over an incident that happened while he was on duty. And the reason this matters goes way beyond one traffic incident, one prosecutor, or one blue city trying to make a name for itself while going after ICE. The bigger issue is whether local progressive prosecutors now believe they can criminalize the actions of federal agents whenever they dislike immigration enforcement. That's actually the real question here. And it's probably going to take a while to get the answer, but I guess we'll find out together. According to the allegations, Morgan and another agent were driving at high speed on the shoulder in an unmarked SUV back in February when another driver moved over and partially impeded them. Morgan is accused of then pulling alongside the other vehicle and pointing a firearm at the occupants after the agents identified themselves as police. The civilians then called 911. Local authorities later found the agents in a parking lot, and now the county attorney's office has brought felony charges. Moriarty's office also said there's a warrant for the federal agent's arrest. So some of you know my backstory. I'm not going into it today. I will say this. Last I checked, you're not really supposed to brandish a weapon at folks when you're just trying to get around them. So I think there probably should be some sort of federal consequences for this. However, what Minnesota is doing, that's a bit over the line. But there are two separate issues here. And of course, my conservative friends need to make sure that we pay attention to both of them. First, if a federal agent did something reckless or unlawful, that matters. Nobody gets a magic badge that exempts them from all scrutiny. But again, my Okie came out. I apologize for that. Anyway, but here's the problem. Again, if there was an issue, and based on what I've been able to see of it, there may or may not have been one, assuming this incident actually happened as depicted, because we're talking about Minnesota, for God's sake, so who the hell actually knows? That could be a problem. But it's more of a slap on the wrist kind of problem because, dude, it's not like he shot him. They didn't pull him over, drag him out of the car, none of that. They're just like, hey, you're being a dick, and we're cops. And I'll be honest, there was probably some sort of back and forth that happened there because even when bad things happened most of the time, even in my private sector days, normally what would happen is somebody would cross a line, usually the other person. One of my officers would react and then feel the need to stamp it down because you have to maintain control of the scene no matter what. And so eventually it would usually come to light that there were sometimes bad things that happened on both sides, and I had to discipline more than a couple of folks for overstepping lines, which is why I'm saying this could be something that might warrant some form of, hey, you get to spend a couple of days unpaid while we review this, and you're probably going to get a rip in your jacket. But here's the other much more important issue. When you are watching the current political climate, you'd have to be blind not to see that ICE has been turned into a political punching bag by the left, Democrats, and progressive activists. But I just repeated myself. And they've spent months portraying immigration enforcement agents as monsters, villains, stormtroopers, Nazis, whatever word you think will rile up the activist class that week and get them to pour bunches of money in so that they can do their grassroots protesting. So that kind of rhetoric doesn't stay in the air forever. Eventually, it filters into institutions, into prosecutors' offices, into juries, into local law enforcement culture. And that's why this case is bigger than a road rage allegation. It lands in a political context where the parts of the left are not merely critical of immigration enforcement, they are morally opposed to it. They do not think these agents are carrying out a lawful federal function. They think they are an enemy occupying force. And this is exactly why we are still, nobody really is talking about it anymore, but we're still in the midst of a partial government shutdown because the left was able to put ice in a pocket for the last 4 years, do absolutely nothing with them really, and now there's an administration trying to use them for their outlined specified legal purposes, and the left doesn't even want them funded anymore because they fundamentally disagree with those purposes. But the scariest thing about all of this, in my opinion, is if you rewind about 20 years, the Democrats were saying the same things the Republicans are now. Now, why the Republicans weren't saying those same things with them 20 years ago when they agreed with them and getting these things fixed, I don't have those answers, but I wish to God I did, because the political wind shiftage is insane. As somebody who's been doing this now for almost as long as this argument has been in front and center news, not quite that long, but pretty dang close. I guess it's closer to 30 years now. I keep doing my math wrong. I'm sorry. It's kind of like when somebody says, oh, look, it's 30 years ago. Oh, yeah, you mean 1970? No, that's not what they mean anymore. Anyway, so yeah, I did my math wrong. So I guess it was closer to 30 years. So in current generational markers, we're talking about specifically nearly 2 generations ago when Democrats were saying the same things that Republicans are saying now. But of course, even though most of those same people are still in those same positions, they have conveniently political amnesia. So, yeah. So when the prosecutors start operating with that mindset, meaning, these are not federal agents, they're enemy occupiers, you have a problem that goes straight to federal supremacy and constitutional structure. Now, I will say this. There have been plenty of times that conservatives have looked at some of this stuff the same way. Remember when everybody was freaking out when we found out that under Obama, I think was it Obama or was it Biden? Hell, I don't remember. It may have been as far back as Obama. But remember when everybody was surprised to find out that the IRS actually had a criminal investigations division with thousands of agents with police powers and the ability to serve warrants, and they were armed and everything else? We're like, what the hell is this? Yeah, so it's not like this is exclusive to both sides, but this goes to one side or the other. But this goes back to everybody doesn't trust everybody else. And this is going to be kind of a recurring theme throughout the day because there's lots of things that are coming to light that make you kind of wonder what's going on. So, yeah. But here's the problem. When they go through this mindset, you have a huge problem because this, again, goes to the argument of federal supremacy and constitutional structure. Because this country cannot function if every county attorney in every ideological hot zone, regardless of the flavor of that hot zone, decides that they're going to freelance federal immigration policy through criminal charges. That's not federalism. That's chaos. That, as you guys know, thanks to my friend, the Amish one, otherwise known as Ordnance J. Packard Esquire, I've become what is known as a minarchist. This means it's not quite anarchy, but it's a small enough government that it can't do very much without coming to you with hat in hand. And it also means it's usually small enough that should the need arise, you can drown it in a bathtub and start over. That's where I am today. But yes, there are real legal questions with all of this. The Supremacy Clause exists for a reason. Federal officers carrying out federal duties do not simply become subject to whatever ideological vendetta a local prosecutor wants to indulge. Long-standing doctrines come into play when state or local authorities try to interfere with federal officers acting within the scope of their authority, which is why the case is likely to trigger a broader jurisdictional fight. And it will. I wouldn't be surprised if probably in the next year or so, all of this goes, that's probably going to be at first. So first of all, what I expect to happen before I go back into the notes that I've put together is this. I expect there will be a federal push to move this to a federal court jurisdiction. And then, depending on whatever happens there will likely be an expedited petition directly to the Supreme Court because of the overreach here. And make no mistake, there is overreach. So I'm telling you, the timing, the climate, and the prosecutorial postures ought to make people very, very nervous. And again, I don't care what flavor of hot zone we are talking about. But the difference is, because when the shoe was on the other foot and the federal government was not actively trying to enforce federal immigration policies, which is ultimately their decision, and at one point even the court agreed to a point with that take, a lot of the red state border states were getting in trouble for the things that they were doing, like shipping people that were coming across the border into blue states and blue cities, as well as trying to close their own borders. So again, look, I really want us to get back to what the federal government intended. Because remember, it didn't even used to be called the federal government. Our founding fathers called it the general government, and it had 3 main purposes. Now it has 11 billion purposes. But here's the thing, because if you think that power will only ever be used against people you dislike, you really need to crack a history book, assuming you still have access to one. So again, this isn't just a Minnesota story. This is a test case in whether the left's cultural war on immigration enforcement is now becoming an actual institutional war on immigration laws, immigration enforcement, and how we handle people coming into our country illegally. And if it is, Washington better decide very quickly whether it intends to defend its own people. All right. So that's what's happening here. National level, Minnesota. We're going to change tacks a little bit. So from one constitutional class to another, let's widen that lens just a little bit. Because while the left is busy trying to criminalize enforcement and hollow out borders, Justice Clarence Thomas was down in Texas talking about the philosophical roots of all of this mess. And this is why Clarence Thomas drives the media nuts, because when he speaks plainly about first principles, you can suddenly see that half the political fights in the country are not over policy details at all. They're over where your rights actually come from. So Justice Clarence Thomas spoke this week at the University of Texas at Austin in connection with the upcoming 250th anniversary of the 250th birthday, let's fix that, of the United States. And one of the most striking portions of that appearance was his warning that progressivism is fundamentally at odds with the principles of the Declaration of Independence. We actually have a clip that is going to be discussing that point for me. So let's get that queued up real quick, and then we'll continue the discussion after the clip. So hang on.
At the beginning of the 20th century, a new set of first principles of government was introduced into the American mainstream. The proponents of this new set of first principles, most prominent among them, the 28th President of our country, Woodrow Wilson, called it progressivism. Since Wilson's presidency, progressivism has made many inroads into our system of government and our way of life. It has coexisted with the principles of the Declaration. Because it is opposed to those principles, it is not possible for the two to coexist forever. Progressivism was not native to America. Wilson and the progressives candidly admitted that they took it from Otto von Bismarck's Germany, whose state-centric society they admired. Progressives like Wilson argued that America needed to leave behind the principles of the founding and catch up with the more advanced and sophisticated system of relatively unimpeded state power, nearly perfect perfected. He acknowledged that it was a foreign science, speaking very little of the language of English or American principle, which offers none but what are, to our minds, alien ideas. He thus described America, still stuck with its original system of government, as, quote, slow to see the superiority of the European system. Progressivism was the first mainstream American political movement, with the possible exception of the pro-slavery reactionaries on the eve of the Civil War, to oppose the principles of the Declaration. Progressives strove to undo the Declaration's commitment to equality and natural rights, both of which they denied were self-evident. To Wilson, the unalienable rights of the individual were, quote, a lot of nonsense. Wilson redefined liberty not as a natural right antecedent to the government, but as, quote, the right of those who are governed to adjust government to their own needs and interests. In other words, liberty no longer preceded the government as a gift from God, but was to be enjoyed at the grace of the government. The government, as Wilson reconceived it, would be, quote, beneficent and indispensable. Progressives such as John Dewey attacked the framers for believing that their ideas were immutable truth, good for all times and places, when instead they were, according to him, historically conditioned and relevant only in their own time. Now Dewey and the progressives argued those ideas are to be displaced. Progressivism seeks to replace the basic premises of the Declaration of Independence, and hence our form of government. It holds that our rights and our dignities come not from God, but from government. It requires of the people a subservience and weakness incompatible with a constitution premised on the transcendent origin of.
All right, so there you have Clarence Thomas going into a bit of a deep dive regarding progressivism and saying a lot of things that I've been saying now for a while. But we're going to keep going with this here as we kind of delve into this a little bit more because it's kind of important. So again, the line that matters most was when Thomas said progressivism seeks to replace the basic premises of the Declaration and, in effect, replace a system where rights come from God with one where rights come from the government. That's it. That's the heart of it. And folks, that's actually the whole ballgame, because if your rights come from God, government is limited. It can protect those rights, recognize those rights, secure those rights, but it does not create them. If your rights come from government and government officials, the government can edit them, ration them, suspend them, and decide which ones still apply when the people in charge get nervous. And that's where the danger always comes in, because what the government giveth, it can taketh away. This is not just some old theological sounding phrase either. That is the practical reality of modern government, power. Once you accept the idea that your freedoms are really permissions handed out by the state, then the only question left is who's in charge when the permissions start getting revoked. That's why this matters so much. And this is why Clarence Thomas matters so much. And let's not forget, again, rewinding into that Wayback Machine, I'm going to say this was probably, I think, 91-ish, I think. Remember when Clarence Thomas was all in the news because according to, I think it was, wasn't it? I don't remember who said it, and I don't want to misappropriate. The name Juanita Broderick keeps coming to mind, but if I have that wrong, then I'm willing to admit it. But I remember there being this whole big thing about him supposedly putting a pubic hair on a soft drink can. Imagine if that had worked. Just for a moment, imagine if that had worked. Because if that had worked, the man who keeps dragging the argument back to first principles while everybody else is drowning in process, precedent, bureaucracy, and spin would have never made it to the bench. All right, so we're going to take the first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to give you a modern example of how dangerous all of that mindset can be, because if you want to get into what that is or what that could possibly be, you really need to look no further than FISA, and there's a huge fight going on with that too. My name is Rick Robinson. This is my show. This is the Finally Friday edition. Don't forget, coming up at 3 p.m. Eastern, we also have Weekend News Roundup, followed by later tonight, He Said, She Said at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be right back after our tribute to first responders, as we normally do in this time every Friday.
When the call comes in, somebody answers. Day or night, they're already moving. Calm voices, fast hands, doing the work while the rest of the world freezes. From a headset to a truck, from a badge to a door, they don't stop to count the cost. They step in when it matters. It's not about being seen, it's about being there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Before the sirens fade, before the scene is clear, someone's already making sense of the moment. Keeping people alive, keeping things from getting worse. Some run toward danger, some stay behind and hold it together. Different roles, same weight, same promise to show up. When everything's on the line, they're already there. They're holding the line when the lines go dead, standing their ground when the world goes dark. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line through the fire, the flood. When everything falls, they don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. This is service, this is sacrifice, this is how lives are saved. No spotlight, no applause, just showing up again and again. They're holding the line when the world goes dark. When everything's breaking, they hold their ground. They're the calm in the chaos, holding the line. So we raise our voices for the ones who stand. Every voice, every badge, every helping hand. They don't ask why, they just answer the call. Always standing in the gap for us all. Always standing in the gap for us all. For those who run and for those who hold steady, for those who stand in the gap.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I keep forgetting when I change from screen to screen. If I'm playing the actual source in the screen, it cuts it off. I'll learn all these newfangled things eventually. Maybe. I mean, hell, I'm about to be 53 years old, so maybe my days of learning new stuff is over. Maybe they's gone. I don't really know, but we'll find out. All right. So I teased it before we went to the break. We got to get into this FISA stuff. Because this is actually probably one of the biggest examples of government overreach, and it happened while our side was in charge. For those of you who think like I think. Because remember, FISA was sold as one of those tools the government just had to have, necessary, careful, limited, supervised, only for the right reasons, only for the real threats, only and always with guardrails. But then what happened? Exactly what always happens when government gets power. It promises to use responsibly. Apparently, yeah, there's a remember the with great power comes great responsibility guy? Yeah, Uncle Owen, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. Anyway, apparently the federal government needed one of those because they don't have it. So those powers, as they always do, even though we'll be responsible with it. Those powers, as they often do and pretty much always do, they expand. The definitions get stretched. Justifications multiply. The oversight turns rather squishy with a side of mush, and before long, you've built a framework that can be turned inward, abused, manipulated, and weaponized depending on who's holding the controls. And according to both sides, each side weaponizes it against the other. Because, look, we can talk about this in the realm of theoretical principles and what a stupid idea it was. Most of how I've said that with pretty much all of the Patriot Act once the brouhaha ended and we got a chance to rationally look under the hood. But again, remember, this isn't hypothetical because it's happening right now. There is a block of House Republicans saying, no, we're not just going to rubber stamp another version of FISA and pretend the same broken system is suddenly safe because somebody changed the packaging and because our guy at the top is the one wielding that power right now. So according to the update, a group of hardliners pushed back after leadership, yeah, you heard me, leadership tried to move two different versions of FISA in the dead of night. And that matters too, by the way. If you got to jam something through between midnight and 2 a.m, remember when your grandma and grandpa always used to tell you, hey, nothing good happens after midnight? They take that and double it with Congress because it's worse than feeding Gizmo after midnight. So maybe that ought to tell people something right there. Thomas Massey, I know, I just cringed a little bit too, said it plainly. They tried to pass two bad versions of FISA, both of which would have allowed the federal government to unconstitutionally spy on Americans. He says they stopped both versions, at least for now, and bought 2 more weeks. And as I just pointed out with my cringe for having to mention his name, I haven't agreed with Massey on much of anything lately, but even a broken clock is right twice a day, yada, yada, yada. And unfortunately, on this one, he's actually right, because this is one of those moments where people need to stop thinking tribally for 5 minutes and think constitutionally. I don't care who's in power. I should have done this in more of the green eggs and ham cadence, but I didn't think about it till now. I don't care whether the people holding the levers are people you voted for, people you trust, or people you think are on your side this week. Bad power is bad power. Bad precedent is bad precedent. And once government gets used to having a tool, it never wants to give that tool back. That's the pattern. They always tell you it's narrow. They always tell you it's temporary. Remember when income tax was supposed to be temporary? Yes, I know it's April 17th and we shouldn't even really be talking about it anymore. Hopefully you've either gotten your returns filed or your extensions or whatever we're talking about. But remember, all of that crap was supposed to be temporary. You ever notice that when a temporary government program gets started, it's never temporary? Because one day you wake up and realize the definitions got blurry, the guardrails got soft, if not taken down altogether. The oversight again got weak with a side of mush, and the same machine that was sold as a shield is suddenly more shaped like a sword and pointed directly at you. This is why FISA has always bothered me, and I've been consistent about that, not because I'm soft on national security. That's the last thing I am. Not because I don't understand the existence of real threats, but because once you build a surveillance architecture and teach government that it is normal, necessary, and proper for it to operate in secret with broad discretion, you are creating a precedent that somebody somewhere eventually will abuse. Always. Always. And this is one of the most public disagreements I've had with Trump 2.0 since he was sworn in, but this is one of my hard lines. I'm so tired of the same guy who campaigned about how bad FISA was and how Biden was using it to come after him and Obama was using it to come after him. Now that he's the guy with access to the pen, suddenly FISA is the next best thing since sliced bread. So remember, not a lot of this happened under the first administration, but then we got to the second one that had access to it. Everybody remember that one and how often FISA was used against Republicans? Because sooner or later, somebody gets their hands on it who should not have it, and by then, the machinery is already built. That's the trap. That's why this ties directly back to what Clarence Thomas was saying in those clips. If rights come from God, then government power has to stay boxed in. If rights come from government, then every new intrusion gets sold as just one more reasonable adjustment for safety, security, and efficiency. And we all know what Ben Franklin was attributed to have said regarding those who valued safety over liberty. Before long, liberty is no longer something government protects, it becomes something government manages. That is a very dangerous shift, because that's when we start moving in to the gateway drug of socialism, which eventually becomes full-blown communism if it isn't curtailed rapidly. So when Massey and those others say, hold on, fix this, don't ram through another surveillance bill in the dead of night, that's not fringe behavior. That is exactly what people who still believe in constitutional limits are supposed to do. That's the lesson. Bad precedent is bad precedent, no matter who wields it. And that's why the fight over progressivism is not just philosophical throat clearing and chest thumping. It has real consequences. Because once you normalize the idea that the government is the source of your rights, then every new power grab becomes easier and easier to justify. Every emergency becomes an excuse. And let's not forget the Democratic mantra: never let a dire situation go to waste. And I know I'm butchering that, but it's kind of the same thing. So every fear becomes a rationale. Every crisis becomes an opportunity. So we're stealing from the Chinese when it comes to that, I guess. Anyway, and every time the government says, trust us, bro, this power will only be used carefully, your answer ought to be, no thanks, I've actually read history. That's what Thomas was really getting at, and that's why these two things are so important. We have to keep our focus on where our rights come from. If you believe they come from the government, then you should be really happy about a lot of the things that are happening when it comes to FISA and a lot of the other things. If you believe they come from God, then you should be very upset about your government getting a blank check to spy on you with very limited oversight. The deeper danger in progressivism is not just that it wants bigger government, it's that it treats bigger government as morally trustworthy by default. It isn't. Government is not holy. Bureaucrats are not wise by nature. Institutions are not self-purifying. And power does not become safe just because somebody with a title promises to behave. So when Clarence Thomas says progressivism is at war with the principles of the Declaration, what he's really saying is that one vision of America begins with liberty and limits power, while the newest vision of America begins with power and then tells liberty where it can go stick it. And that is a very different country entirely. And that's the trap, folks. What the government giveth, it can taketh away. That's why I've always said FISA was bad no matter who wielded it, because once you hand government a power it should never have had in the first place, eventually somebody you don't trust is going to get their hands on it. And so fun times. So, in speaking of people who seem to think the public exists mainly to admire their latest project, let's talk about Grisolini for a minute, the failed governor of the now failed state of commie failure. Because nothing says humble man of the people quite like a memoir rolled out that turns out to have PAC money helping move the merchandise. So you may have heard about this already, but if not, I'll help you fill in the blanks. Governor Grisolini Gavin Newsom's memoir, A Young Man in a Hurry, was marketed as a best-selling personal story of growth, grief, and political journey. But subsequent reporting showed that a large share of the book's distribution came through a campaign-style PAC donation offer rather than ordinary retail sales. Now, let's be honest, politicians do not write books because the nation is starving for their prose. They write books because they're political tools. A book gives you a tour gives you interviews. Interviews give you camera time gives you buzz gives you donor enthusiasm and early positioning for whatever national ambition you're nursing in private while pretending not to be. That's the game, and Gavin Newsom is playing the game rather poorly, but he is still playing it. The reason this story matters is not because I'm shocked, because this is my shocked face. I promise it is. And I guess I'm not really shocked, but I mean, a few years ago I might have been. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not shocked. Shocked because I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I tell you, really, this is my shocked face. I promise that a politician used a book launch for political advantage. But of course he did. The reason it matters is because there's a difference between a successful book and an astroturfed impression of a successful book. I don't know what happened there. That is not organic enthusiasm. That's mechanism. That's using your behind-the-scenes machinery to make something seem more important and impressive than it actually is. And look, if the PAC made money on the back end, fine. Newsom's team says the tactic more than paid for itself. That may be true, but it might not be. But it still doesn't change the optics either. It doesn't change the basic reality that what was being sold to the public as one thing, when you get a little look under the hood and give it some scrutiny, looks like something else entirely. And to be fair, maybe some people really did buy it because they deeply wanted Gavin Newsom's reflection on life. For those 5 people, I suggest seeking professional help. Yeah. And again, I'm betting that number's a lot smaller than the press release implied. And because Gavin Newsom is one of those guys who always seems to arrive in the room already expecting applause. Remember when Biden, wasn't it Biden who got what? I think it was Biden. It may have been somebody else who was given their big moment and nobody responded. And they're like, please clap. Yeah, that's Gavin Newsom. He comes in expecting them to already get applause. He carries himself like the future of the Democratic Party. He acts like he's auditioning for the next level every time he opens his mouth. So when a story like this comes along, it doesn't just read as political gamesmanship. It reads as what it is, vanity. And voters are getting very, very, very tired of vanity, especially when it's wrapped in a halo of sincerity held up by the horns of progressivism. So, yeah, I think this story matters because it tells you something about how modern politics works. It's branding, narrative management, donor mechanics, media choreography, and ego, all dressed up as publishing. That's not a memoir. That's a launch platform. That is a launch platform. All right, so as we get into the final minutes of the hour, I did fail to do a sponsor shout out, so we should probably do that right now. I want to tell you about our friends over at Freedom Chat, freedomchat.com. Go there on the break if you want to, and then come right back. Freedom Chat is akin to Signal and WhatsApp, but it doesn't have all the crazy folks on it, and there are a lot of security-rich features that I do encourage you to check out. And while we're on the subject, let's, again, freedomchat.com. You can go over to their website. You can then get the link to, it tells you how to get to, you can honestly just search for it on your phone if you know how. But for those of you that are in my age demographics, as most of you that listen to the show are, you can go to their website and it'll walk you through how to put it on your phone. There are channels for K-Alarm Radio as well as myself, and we will be adding more probably in the coming months. However, while we're on the subject, let's talk about another friend of ours, and that is a company who is CEO'd by Jeff Dornick, and that's Pickaxe. That is a social media alternative similar to X, but with no algorithm. You are the algorithm. You get to decide who you're going to interact with. You follow the people you want to follow. They follow you back if they want to follow you back. And you see their content instead of what the algorithm thinks is important to you, because there is no algorithm, because you are the algorithm. And you have always been the engine behind social media. And I don't know why the powers that be in the bigger groups are starting to get away from that. All right. So on that note, folks, we are going to take a break. We'll be right back here in just a little bit, but we are gonna step out for a second. Make sure you guys are liking the feed, subscribing the feed wherever you happen to find us. We're available on Rumble under America's Podcast Network. We're available on X, on my feed, as well as the network feed at Radio X73 and at KLRM Radio. You can find our archives on klrmradio.com. You can also find our audio podcast versions on pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. And we're also on Facebook as well, because we're kind of trying to put things everywhere. All right. So I told you we were going to get into Oklahoma stuff. We're going to have to do a little bit of shuffling. We'll get into that top of the hour for hour 2. But since we've got a lot of ground to cover still, I think what we're going to do now is do our military tribute as the bottom of the hour break. Top of the hour break, and then come right back. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. I know. I told you guys there was way too much to talk about today. I told you. I tried to tell you. I really did.
Before the oath was spoken out loud, before you stood apart from the crowd, there was a moment, quiet and clear, when you chose to stand while others stayed here. You raised your hand with a steady resolve, knowing some nights don't end when the mission's done. Not for glory, not for the pay, but for something worth more than walking away. Only hold the line. They carried the weight where the roads ran long, through dust and heat when the days went on, holding ground mile after mile, doing the work that rarely drew a smile. They stood their post when relief ran late, shoulders squared under the pull of fate. Not chasing headlines, not asking why, just staying put when others pass by. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. We stand watch over the deep. Navy. They kept their watch where the water turns black, miles from shore with no quick way back, measuring time by the rise and the fall, answering duty's unrelenting call. Through silent hours and endless seas, they stood their post in the cold night breeze, guarding the lanes the world depends on, so others slept and the light stayed on. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. Simplify, Marine. We go where we're sent. We go They moved as one when the moment came, side by side through fire and rain. First a step where the ground was thin, not for the odds but for the ones beside them.
Trust was earned in the hard way through, every promise carried by the few. No turning back once the line was crossed.
They stood shoulder to shoulder as brothers,
never counting the cost. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One oath spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
Air Force,
The sky is our domain.
Air Force.
The sky is our domain.
They held their focus where seconds seem eternal, soaring between clouds and blue. Every movement measured and true, knowing what one clean moment could do.
They watch the whole while guarding the small, every mission tied to a larger call. Calm under pressure, steady and clear, keeping the promise from far overhead.
Space Force,
we guard the dark without
they
faith,
keep their vigil
where silence reigns,
beyond the weather,
beyond the rain.
watching the paths that the world relies on, long before the warning lights come on.
Cloud, no banners, no clear view,
Just constant care in a canvas full of stars,
standing the watch through the endless night, guarding the systems that keep us in light.
while the watch is kept and the lines hold fast. There are lives still moving on the other side of that.
Empty chairs and quiet phones, long goodbyes that don't feel done.
Names we carry but never say, folded flags and debts we pay. Every service, every scar reaches farther than the uniform ever could.
Coast Guard, we come when it matters most.
They launch into storms when hope feels thin. Turning back isn't an option then. Hands reach out where the waters rise, pulling lives back from the edge of time. No headlines waiting when the call is done, just breathing restored and another life won. Every rescue, every return, a quiet promise kept in the worst conditions. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days.
One oath spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
For the ones who raised the right hand high,
Swore the oath and didn't ask us why.
for the nights you stood where freedom cost.
We remember, we honor, we won't forget the loss.
From the ground to the sea to the open sky, to the guardians above where the silent stars fly. Every branch, every badge, every battle scar, because you stood.
We live free.
Lord, each know
We stand here freely.
because others stood before us. We accept the weight of what was given and the cost that came with it. We promise to remember those who serve, those who stand watch still, and those who never came home.
following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion.
Alarm clock barking like it's got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the eye.
All right. Well, as much as I love this song, and I know I usually only play it about once a week, but we got too much material to get through. All right. You didn't think I wasn't going to talk about this, did you? I know I didn't tell. This wasn't even in my teaser, but I just figured I'd save it as a surprise. Because we do usually try to have a little bit of fun around here. And, of course, it is Friday. So, and I did a deep dive with Gene and a friend of his on Behind the Enemy Lines the other night about this very thing. And we're going to give you a quick summary just for fun. This is the latest This Week in Democracy clip. And I think it might actually even fall under Buffoon of the Week. But here we go.
How's your relationship with Eric? Are you guys still friends?
Eric who? Allow me to remind you.
Eric's a man of integrity, a man of character, values, and a great leader.
So you're dropping out of the race?
I am dropping out of the race and supporting Eric Swalwell.
Oh, now, there's your first mistake.
We have spoken with 4 women who have various kinds of sexual misconduct claims against Congressman Swalwell, ranging from inappropriate messages and pictures to unwanted kissing and touching, and in one case, rape.
Well, consider me reminded.
Did you suspect this at all?
No! I was blown away. Like, blown away. Like, there's no way I would have endorsed him.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
I was going to say, fair to say you're mad. I mean...
Mad?
Yeah.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
I am no longer a Democrat. I'm now a libertarian Republican.
One of us, gobble, gobble, one of us. We accept that one of us.
Don't bust the trust. You bust the trust, you don't exist in my life. I am now a Republican.
Uh-oh. Poor old Sir Farts-a-Lot busted the trust while busting a nut. Dun, 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 dun. All right, anyway, sorry. You knew it. Come on. You knew somebody was going to go there. It was going to be, you knew if anybody was going to do it, it's going to be me. Anyway, so yeah, I had a fun hour with Gene the other night. So if you missed all that, you can go back and check out the replay later. Hey, we have a rooster sighting. How's married life treating you, my friend? Haven't seen you much, so I'm guessing there's a lot of good stuff happening in your life, but I'm glad to see you today. All right, so back into the actual stuff we were going to be talking about. And I think I might move the Oklahoma stuff until later, because there's just way too much to talk about today. So let's get into what was officially the hour 2 stuff. So of course we started domestic because there's plenty going on here at home. But now we're going to need to pivot a little bit and widen that lens because the situation involving Iran, Lebanon, oil markets, shipping lanes, and the larger U.S. pressure campaign has shifted in a significant way over the last 24 hours, leaving most of the Democrats currently cursing under their breath, weeping, gnashing of teeth, and freaking out altogether. Because let's not forget, just a few, 24, 36-ish hours ago, Senator Schumer, who's really not, he's the de facto, he's the paper tiger leader of the Senate minority party, but I don't think he's actually the one in charge anymore. Anyway, may get into that on a later show. But this is one of those stories where the market reaction tells you something real. Oil is down sharply. To use the parlance of the mainstream media, who's wanted you running around for the last 40 some odd days like your hair was on fire, the market for oil is plummeting. And here's the other thing. Look, I get it for the Dow. Why, anytime they show positive, it's green, and negative, it's red. I never really have understood that for oil. Because normally positive territory for oil is bad, or at least maybe should be yellow, if not green. Depending on the price, I think it should be either yellow or red, and then down should always be green most of the time until it gets maybe down below $20 a barrel, and maybe it should be red too. But don't confuse relief with resolution because we're still not there yet. And the deeper story is much more complicated than that. So here's the short version. The shipping lane is open. Oil is down because of it. The blockade currently stays in effect. Trump says the U.S. gets the remaining nuclear material, and Iran is still threatening protesters with death, because of course they are. Iran's foreign minister said the Strait of Hormuz is now open to commercial vessels during the current Lebanon ceasefire arrangement, and President Trump echoed that the passage is open, even as U.S. pressure on Iran continues. That is a very big deal because Hormuz is one of the most important oil choke points in the world. And if I may take a moment just to pause here, can we fix that, please? We're giving very pissed off camel jockeys way too much control. Just saying. I know. Rules. I get it. I know. There's rules, and I did a thing. So is it loaded? I thought I had it loaded. Maybe I don't have it. Oh, there it is.
Oh, durka.
Like I said, rules. I said camel jockey, so it had to be done. Oh, damn it. I did it again.
Oh, durka.
Okay. So, yeah, oil is plummeting, down 12% last time I looked. And at the same time, equities rallied. The Dow surged. The S&P climbed, which is, for those of you doing long-term investing, park your money there. The NASDAQ climbed and Treasury yields eased. That is a broad, thank goodness things may not be spiraling today, move. It doesn't mean people trust the Iranian regime, because you never should. And to be fair, there's not really much of a structured regime left. There's a bunch of independent cells acting on previous orders, which is why even after there was ink on paper, and I talked about this the other day, even after there was ink on paper with the deal, people were still like, why are they still firing? Because the politicians don't actually control the military. And as a matter of fact, there's now a rumor that the guy who's supposedly at the top of the food chain is actually in the IRGC's pocket. But none of these people live very long, so I'm not that concerned. Anyway. So again, this was a broad thank goodness because things aren't going to be so bad after all. So it doesn't mean people trust the Iranian regime. And again, as I said a moment ago, it shouldn't. It means they think a broader regional conflagration is less imminent than it looked just 24 hours ago. But this is where the story gets more interesting, because the Strait of Hormuz being open does not mean pressure on Iran is gone. In fact, Trump says the U.S. blockade on Iranian shipping and ports remains in full effect until a broader transaction or agreement is completed, which is very smart on his end. You have your knee is on their neck. Don't let them up. So that matters because it tells you what the administration seems to be trying to do. The shape of the policy looks like this: restore enough stability to global commerce that oil can flow and markets can calm down, while continuing to squeeze Tehran until it gives up whatever nuclear leverage it still has, if any, because that's been questionable ever since the B-2 strikes a while ago. But I'm going to say this. I just got a text from someone who is a confidential source, so no names will be mentioned, who basically said that he is hearing scuttlebutt that we may actually be starting to push for regime change in Iran. And if we do that, I hope we use Israeli forces and Iranian forces. But I do think, regardless of if it takes us going in to clean up a mess, my stance on this has been the same ever since we started talking about this. This was a mess our nation, along with the British, made back in the 50s. It's time. As much as I don't like Team America World Police, I know I got to kind of do it again.
Oh, durka.
That's where this comes from. So kind of had to do it again. But as much as I don't like being the world police, this was a mess of our creation, and it started a long time ago and should have been dealt with a long time before now. But it's finally being dealt with, and we need to finish it. Because this brings us to the next piece. Trump said Friday the United States will get all remaining nuclear dust and residual material from Iran's bombed nuclear sites. His phrase, not mine, and that no money will change hands. Now, if that statement ends up matching reality, yeah, and I'm just saying that's kind of a big if. As much as I do love a lot of what Trump is doing, that is still kind of a big if. Just saying, but if it does wind up matching reality, that's enormous. Because then this isn't just a pause in bombing. It isn't just a ceasefire adjacent arrangement. It is not just a shipping lane story. It becomes an actual attempt to physically prevent Iran from retaining usable enriched uranium after the strikes. That is strategic, not symbolic. That would mean the administration is trying to turn military pressure into a durable non-proliferation outcome. Now, again, I'm trying to be very careful here. The confirmed part is that Trump said that the unconfirmed part is exactly how the United States would secure it, verify it, remove it, or compel compliance if Iran starts playing games. Those operational details remain murky at best in most public reporting that I can find. And again, from back channel sources I have, there's some other stuff that may be about to pop off, but I guess we'll see, because if they're actually bringing Iran to the table, that could be huge. But again, let's not forget their entire religious structure allows them to lie to people to protect themselves. So yeah, there's a little thing called taqiyya. Should probably look it up. Taqiyya. I don't know how they pronounce it. I don't really care. But even with that caveat, the direction of travel is clear at this point. Washington is not acting like this is over. Washington is acting like military force created an opening. Maritime pressure created leverage, which Iran thought it had until we blockaded the blockade, which the left made fun of, by the way. And I saw a post just last night about what's next, the blockade of the blockade of the blockade. And then we wake up this morning to the pressure actually working, because in the short time we've been enforcing the blockade, Iran has already lost $1.7 billion. So that's the play, is to choke them to the point where they come to the table. Now, here's the part that should keep anyone from getting too sentimental about diplomacy. While all of this is happening, shipping lanes reopening, markets giving a big sigh of relief, negotiations may be moving again, Iran is still reportedly sentencing anti-regime protesters to death. 4 people tied to anti-regime protests have reportedly received death sentences, including Bida Himadi, who rights groups say would be the first woman executed in connection with the 2026 protest wave. And that's the contrast here. To the outside world, they want to look reasonable enough to cut a deal. Back home, they're still being the thugs that we always knew they were. So when people ask whether Iran is de-escalating, the honest answer is maybe. In one direction, for one purpose, under pressure. Under pressure. Oh, sorry. But morally, politically, structurally, it's still the same regime. So the right takeaway from all this is not, oh, good, maybe the mullahs have turned over a new leaf. Nah. The right takeaway is that sustained pressure may have forced them to back up temporarily, while still leaving them every bit as brutal at home as they were before. And if that's the situation, then good. We just got to keep the pressure on, because let's not forget, something else that we haven't really threaded into this today is there have been more and more leaks about civil uprising against the IRGC security forces. So if that's starting to happen, that's actually good. Because if you're getting lower oil, calmer markets, freer shipping, and nuclear concessions without pretending the regime has become civilized, that's called realism. And realism is a lot better than fantasy. All right, so we're going to move things back home a little bit just for a second, because this actually goes kind of into the same vein of everything we've been talking about today. Because there's a new twist to Virginia red flag laws. And it took Abigail Spamberger, I know, I mispronounced it on purpose, no time to get this pushed through and signed. So she signed updates to the state's gun laws that include changes to the substantial risk order process, commonly called red flag law procedures, along with other gun control measures such as ghost gun restrictions and expanded firearm relinquishment requirements. Here's where I think conservatives need to be very disciplined in how we talk about this. The issue is not whether dangerous people exist. Of course they do. The issue is not whether the state has any legitimate role when someone is a danger to himself or others, because of course it actually does. The issue is whether a process marketed as safety can become, in practice, a shortcut around constitutional rights. Remember, those things given by God and supposed to be protected by the government. But this is, again, the opposite of, and we were just talking about this earlier, the government deciding what rights you can have, should have. And I get there are exceptions. I've always understood that there are exceptions to every rule. But this is a state of, again, when this becomes a shortcut around constitutional rights and actual adversarial justice, which is what this appears to be, this isn't concern, or this is concern, not paranoia. It's structure. Because the more categories of people you add who can trigger the machinery, the more you are betting that every institution involved will act with fairness, restraint, competence, and honesty. That's a lot of hope and faith in, I'm just saying. And that is an awful lot of trust to place in modern systems. And trust in public life should be earned, not presumed. If the front end process is ex parte, meaning without the party present, just for those of you who don't speak lawyer, if the accused is not present at the first stage, if the burden shifts in ugly ways later, then don't tell me the phrase due process ends the debate. Due process is not a magic spell. And as we've talked about with the immigration debate, there are different levels of due process, and the left doesn't seem to want to understand that either, unless or until it comes to guns. So it depends on the quality of the process, the equality of the parties, the burden of proof, the speed of review, and whether the average citizen can realistically defend himself without mortgaging his future, which they usually can't. And this is when it gets concrete, shall we say. If you expand the list of people who can trigger the process to include a much wider circle, professionals, officials, or personal relationships, then you are increasing the odds that somebody with bad judgment, bad information, or bad motives can kick off a state action with real consequences. And that matters because remember the whole national level FISA argument we got into in hour one? This is a microcosm, state level, kind of doing the same general thing of figuring out how to take legal systems and turn it against people that they disagree with. So does the practical cost of fighting your way back out of the system once it starts moving matter too? And it should, because let's face it, under a lot of these things, like let's not forget the ability for the government to swoop in and seize profits they feel were from drug trades and properties from drug trades and everything else. Even if you aren't ever charged, once they seize that property or that money, you have to, or never convicted, let's say, not necessarily charged. You still have an entire other level of due process to get through to get your stuff back, which is nearly impossible to do. And as much as that made Miami Vice really cool back in the day, still really bad precedent, just saying. So the left always wants to make these debates sound crude. Oh, so you want dangerous people to keep guns? No, that's not the argument. That's never been my argument. The argument is that rights are easiest to erode when the state finds a scary category and tells you normal protections must bend for the greater good. History is full of examples of that move, and people who value liberty, especially those who value liberty over security, ought to recognize it on sight. All right, so we are going to go ahead and take the bottom of the hour break here in just a second. But before we do, I want to talk to you again about our friends over at Pickaxe. I know I did double billing last time, but it's because I kind of felt like I needed to make up for the fact that I skipped it altogether. Pickaxe, again, look, it is a smaller platform. It is a newer platform, but it now has apps. There are all kinds of things that are going on, and it is one of the best places for content creators because they have ways for revenue to be generated for you that aren't necessarily only reserved for people with 5 million impressions per month or more. Is it a month? I think it's 90 days. Anyway, it's still crazy to me because this completely just leaves out smaller creators, and I never have understood that. Even with the ad insertion tools that we use in other places, we still get paid even if it's only a few pennies. I would much prefer that model, and it's kind of the one that Pickaxe uses. So if you're a content creator, I do encourage you to check it out. If you're somebody who just wants to be able to see and interact with the people that you follow and engage with them, I also encourage that as well. Just as a test, last week, I did 2 posts, one on X, one on Pickaxe, about the same exact thing. And the scary thing is, even though I have a fraction, and I do mean a fraction, of my supposed following on X over there. And I don't say supposed because I've paid for bots or anything. I say that because it seems like most of the people that supposedly follow me almost never interact with anything, which I find really weird. But I had the same amount of engagement, nearly the same amount of likes and replies. I know they use different language over there, but just our likes and reposts, and they use different language over there, but it doesn't matter. And more comments on the supposed smaller account, which is interesting when you think about it, because it means I'm definitely being suppressed over here on X. So when we come back, we do have a couple of, we're going to get into those local stories that I talked about earlier. We've got some more that I had set up for this hour as well. So we're getting close to the end, but we're not there yet. Don't forget, we also have in just a little bit, hopefully Weekend News Roundup. Going to need to confirm with the crew on the break. Sorry, responding to the chat before we go to break. Rooster, I thought it sounded more like, a Mexican food than a Mexican drink, but I get where you're going with it. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. My name's Rick Robinson. It's finally Friday. I want to give a quick shout out to those of you brave enough to hang out in the chat and actually talk. All of our chats are open. You are free to say hi, but if you do decide to act like an idiot, you will be summarily removed. So that's up to you. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
They tried to quench the fire, drown it all in chains, tried to break our will and wash away our names. But every spark they buried only fed the flame. Now the cry of freedom's roaring through the rain. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Forever reign. Now the walls are shaking from the battle cry. Truth is rising to the sky. Every soul that ever felt the weight of chains feels the fire of freedom in their veins. No more chains, no more lies. Hear the thunder as we rise. Freedom's call won't be denied. Now the fire burns worldwide. Hear the cry of freedom on the winds of change. Every voice united, breaking every chain. We were born to stand and never bow again. Let the fire of liberty forever reign. Let the fire of liberty forever reign.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is We have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at klrnradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLR.
Come gather round the footlights, lads, and hear the old boards groan. A tale of ink and iron will, of voices overblown. From mics and scripts to painted sails, we've traded shore for sea. The players will man the rigging soon. Aye, your hands, follow me. From Long John shadowed silver grin to Jim with compass true. We speak the words, we wear the scars, we make the old world new. No gold without the work behind, no legend without sweat. A stage, a ship, a single breath. The course is not set yet. We players sail, we players sail, we players sail.
Probably never got a chance to hear this. This is so years ago when I was chasing radio stuff and actually got picked up at a few places. I actually had a chance to get a local morning show almost, and then when that didn't happen, I was supposed to get a weekend show, but then management, above all the folks that were trying to bring me in, decided they didn't want them anymore. So they kind of got rid of everybody and revamped everything. And since then, they have almost no local programming at all anymore. Our biggest station has no local programming. But just because I liked this and I was pretty proud of it, we're going to take a second. I'm going to let you guys hear something that almost was after we get the legal stuff out of the way.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And this is from, 7 years ago? Yeah, so actually almost exactly. This was cut on 4/8 of 19 for a weekend show that I almost got. And then they did an entire shakeup for the stations. I'm kind of glad I never got signed on over there. But anyway, here we go. Just for fun, because it's Friday.
Welcome to The Weekender with Rick Robinson on KOKC 95.3 FM and 1520 AM.
Oh, a microphone!
That guy in a little coat. That guy in a little coat.
All right, so it was cheeky and fun. It was a bit of an intro, and it was something that almost happened but didn't. That was going to be my Saturday show over at KOKC. It was going to be at probably 3 or 4 in the afternoon. We were going to call it The Weekender. And it didn't happen. But anyway, I hadn't played that in forever, and I came across it the other day, so I decided, you know what? I'm going to show everybody what almost happened and didn't. Look, since then, I've managed to take early retirement, and I'll get paid to do most of this stuff through donations from folks and through small ad buys and everything else. So, yeah, so it's worked out well enough. But still, thinking about what might have been for just a moment. Plus, since we're going to be spending most of the rest of the show in local mode, I kind of thought that was kind of an appropriate way to get us there. All right, so let's get back into the Oklahoma stuff because we got lots of that to get to before we get out of here. And let's face it, we're not really going to be bringing that up on the next show. So again, coming home to Oklahoma for a minute, and kind of a big deal because this is just what usually happens. Local and state level conservatives taking care of business when the federal government refuses to. So, state lawmakers have now advanced a measure that would place voter ID protections directly into the Oklahoma Constitution, sending the issue to voters in August. Now, this is one of those stories where the elite conversation and the normal conversation are not even on the same planet, much less the same page. Pardon me, that one snuck up on me. In elite political media, voter ID is always treated as some dark and sinister plot. Some barely concealed act of oppression, Jim Crow 2.0, some allegedly intolerable demand placed on citizens by forces of democratic darkness. In real life, most people hear you should verify who you are before you vote and respond with something like, yeah, and I thought we did that already. But in Oklahoma, we really kind of do. So you have to show so that's kind of the weird thing. And I get it. Part of it is a federal push to make sure that not only your ID is valid and up to date, but your citizenship has been verified to determine what kind of ballots you should have access to. And I've been saying this for a long time. Since there are things that legal green card holders are allowed to vote in, which is usually things like school board elections, things that affect their direct daily life in the township or the state that they live in, that we should start having separate election times. Or we need to get rid of that altogether, because this whole thing is suffering from a huge disconnect. And frankly, the harder the left fights common sense election safeguards, the more ordinary Americans begin to scratch their head and suspect that maybe the left doesn't actually have much confidence in selling its ideas under transparent rules. Because voter ID is not a radical principle. It is one of the most normal principles imaginable. Hell, the funniest thing about this, right, is the left, who is screaming and yelling about voter ID being oppressive. You have to show ID to get into the Obama presidential library. Not that I could imagine anybody wanting to go there, but you need ID to do all kinds of things, including that one in modern life. But somehow, for the most serious civic act you can perform in a republic, we're supposed to believe it becomes a moral outrage. Really? That's what you're going with here? And the funny thing is, and keep in mind, this is Virginia, by the way. Sam, who used to have a show here and still will be as part of the play crew, so we still consider her part of the family, and is now the chief editor for Twitchy, one of the town hall properties that I write for occasionally. He's basically proved how easy it was to do all the things that the left says would be impossible. So now Oklahoma is moving this into the Constitution matters because it hardens the policy and makes it more durable. It makes it harder for some future ideological shift in the legislature or the courts to treat election integrity like an optional preference instead of a legitimate public good. And that's the part I think a lot of people are going to respond to. Not just the policy itself, but the instinct behind it. Lock in the common sense guardrails before somebody comes along and tells you they're outdated, exclusionary, or whatever the word is in fashion for that particular week when that discussion point comes up. And for those of you, well, that kind of stuff doesn't really happen. I would like to remind you that in public circles today on social media, there are arguments about completely getting rid of the Electoral College because every vote should matter. Now, I have a slightly different take on that. I think every state should matter. So I honestly think it should be winner take all of the 2 Senate seat votes. Just saying. Simple split, even if it's 51-49, whatever the case may be. Because I think the House has way too much weight. And I think they have done way too much gimmicking to give the House as much weight as possible on both sides, depending on who's in charge. And I think every state should matter. I think because the thing that has always enraged a lot of folks around here is the only place everybody seems to campaign in is swing states. If all you could get were the 100 votes, you'd have to campaign everywhere, whether it's virtually, in person, whatever the case may be. You would have to plead your case everywhere because then every state's votes matter. Now, I could be wrong. I'm going to be honest. That could completely shift everything and it might blow up in our faces. I don't really know. But if we're trying to get to more of a, let's not let the blue states have so much control. Then we kind of need to move to a different type of a system where every state should have a voice. And that's kind of what the Electoral College was trying to do. But at the same time, we wouldn't have needed things like the 3/5 compromise or anything else if they had just gone with, well, everybody gets 2 Senate seats. So let's just, whoever gets the most of those gets the job. But anyway, I wasn't alive back then. And there's probably a much smarter reason why they didn't do my idea. But I've always liked my idea. Whenever during the whole hanging Chad thing, when everybody was freaking out, I was like, if we just did the Senate votes, none of this would matter. Because then Florida gets 2 votes just like everybody else, and all this hanging Chad crap wouldn't matter anymore. But hey, what do I know? But so this isn't just about the policy itself, but the instinct behind it. And again, we're going to try to lock those common sense guardrails in. So Oklahoma voters are going to get a direct say on whether voter ID gets locked into the Constitution. That's clean. That's direct. And I suspect most folks here already know where they stand, because in Oklahoma, we've almost always had ID. You have your voter registration card. I think the thing that the left is trying to use most as the stumbling block isn't the voter ID part. That's the part they scream about a lot. But I don't think it's all of it, because they don't want citizenship checked. Because here's the thing: if we stopped, and if we're not going to go to the whole best of 100 votes wins, then the next thing is to get all of the illegals out of our census data, so that we have an actual exact representation of who actually has a voice in our government and has the right to speak at the federal level. And that is the exact opposite of what the left is making it out to be, because they move this into taxation without representation. They move this into the framework of, well, this is as bad as the 3/5 clause. No, because if these people are here legally, they shouldn't have a voice. Hell, even for local elections, it was originally, before all these sanctuary policy crap started sinking in or sneaking in, it was only ever supposed to be legal green card holders that actually had a voice, even in local elections, because they're here legally. But anyway, so as we keep going here, we're going to go into the other couple of stories that matter here in Oklahoma. Well, they're very different on the surface, but both tell you a lot about where state politics is at home right now. First, lawmakers are advancing legislation that would make Oklahoma's statewide school cell phone ban permanent. And hang on, this deserves something. Let me make sure I'm finding the right one. Okay. But yeah, I don't think that one is very complicated, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, I will say that I would have enjoyed Have I been muted this entire time? When did I mute? What happened? I don't know what happened. For some reason, it was showing I was muted for a second there. I don't. Maybe I'm muted when I coughed and then forgot to unmute. Anyway, so I don't know where I was. So I'm going to back up for just a second. All right. So again, just a quick recap of the ones that I was trying to talk through, and I don't know when I'm muted. We do have the cell phone ban that is temporary. They're now actually putting legislation together that would make it a permanent thing here in Oklahoma education centers, which is a great idea, if you ask me. And then, of course, Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. will apparently not be allowed to address the Oklahoma House floor again, which, again, shows you the breakdown between tribal politics and national and Oklahoma politics. But before we get out of here, there is one more Oklahoma note that we need to get into because there's been movement on our budget. Governor Kevin Stitt has signed the state's $12.8 billion budget bill, giving Oklahoma a major state government story with real downstream consequences for spending priorities, fiscal posture, and what lawmakers think the state should be emphasizing right now. Now, budget stories are never the sexiest thing in the world, but they matter because budgets tell you what these people actually care about. Everybody campaigns in poetry. Government governs in line items. So when a budget gets signed, that's where you find out what's real, what was posturing, what got protected, what got trimmed, and what priorities actually survived contact with the math. I said math, not meth. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. And that ultimately is where rhetoric meets reality. Now, we're going to get into that probably more on Monday's show because I'm just starting to dig into what was inked with the budget. But I did want to let for those of you in Oklahoma that have been screaming about budgeting issues, it looks like there's been some movement there. But we are going to start wrapping things up for the day here in just a few minutes. I want to do a quick, let's look and see what else may have been happening in the news. Oh, yeah. So we got to talk about this back on the Straits of Hormuz. And we knew this was going to happen. Amish and I talked about this a little bit the other night, where all of a sudden Europe decided they were going to start trying to put together a coalition for what happened after the war in Iran and how they were trying to exclude America from those proceedings and actually trying to invite none other than China. I know, rules. I know. Okay. Rules, but I gotta find it, and I know it's here somewhere. What did I do with it? Oh, there we go.
China is asshole.
All my buttons keep getting moved around when I change things, and I keep forgetting where I've moved them to. I know. For somebody who used to have a really good memory, as I get older, it's getting worse. But I think that's because I'm always reading through crap, and I think their hard drive's starting to get full. Anyway. So yeah, now according to Dimitri Bolt, they now want to help after the straits open. So now that President Trump has done the hard work of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, European allies have decided that now is the time to act and have announced that the United Kingdom, alongside France, will be leading a purely defensive military operation to ensure freedom of navigation. And we do have a clip on that, so hang on, let me get that figured out here. Yeah, I figured that out. That just means I have to do a cut later, which annoys me. Anyway, so let's get back into all of this. Where to go? I lost where I was going with it. Oh wait, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. Trying to do a million different things at once. I hope it wasn't 2 minutes. That's a long cut. But anyway, I'll make sure it doesn't make it into the final broadcast for the audio side. All right, so here is the clip in question, and this is Keir Starmer coming out.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer arriving now, Élysée Palace in Paris. He is going to meet the French President, Emmanuel Macron. The agenda item is what they and other world leaders can do to aid in the efforts to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. pretty warm relationship, as evidence there, between the two centre-left leaders. Their work cut out for them on what they can do to get the Straits of Hormuz open. Much of the important negotiations taking place, of course.
Too late. We already got it open, so shut your pie hole. But yeah, again, this is all much ado about nothing. When we needed them, they weren't there. And I'm sorry. You're watching real world realignment happen in real time. And again, Amish and I talked about this a little bit on Wednesday night when you've got France and the UK teaming up with China against us. I don't think we're the problem. I don't think we're the problem. Anyway, so this all comes as President Trump slammed supposed NATO allies Friday morning for their lack of assistance throughout the course of Operation Epic Fury in their subsequent negotiations. Now that the Hormuz Strait situation is over, I received a call from NATO asking if we would need some help. The president wrote on Truth Social. I told them to stay away unless they just want to load up their ships with oil. They were useless when needed, a paper tiger. President DJT. Trump went on to thank the Gulf nations that have supported the U.S. throughout the Iran war. And it's interesting because, yeah, he did specifically say, oh, you guys want to come in now that it's over? Yeah, no, never mind. We don't need you. We don't need you. All right, so let's see what else we can get into as we wrap things up because we are just about out of time. So that happened. So let's look at this. This is again from Amy Curtis, and it may be one she brings up later, so I don't want to go too far into it. But I do want to look at this a little bit to see exactly what's going on. So this is from Town Hall, again, penned by Amy Curtis. Utah Supreme Court Justice faces inquiry for relationship with lawyer in congressional redistricting case. So Utah Supreme Court Justice Diane Hagan is facing an investigation by state leaders after it was revealed that she reportedly had a romantic relationship with the lawyer who helped, of course, Democrats redraw the state's congressional map, stealing a seat from Republicans. Utah Governor Spencer Cox, Senate President J. Stewart Adams, and Utah House Speaker Mike Schultz are looking into a complaint that was submitted late last year about Hagan's conduct with the attorney who was arguing the redistricting case before the high court. Quelle surprise. I promise this is my shocked face, but yeah. I'm sure Amy will probably bring this up in more detail in a little bit, assuming that she joins us today. So I'm going to put it out on my X feed for right now and save most of the juicy bits for later. But I did want to take a quick look around everything here and see what other breaking news we had on the way out the door, if any. Oh, liberal heads about to get splody. And I know it's Finnish, and according to Amish, Finland doesn't. According to the Amish one, Finland doesn't exist. Finland isn't real. According to our programming director, not only is Finland real, he wants to bed the former Finnish prime minister. But that's a story for KLRN Radio After Dark. Anyway, so according to a Finnish study that was just released, no evidence that gender-affirming care improves mental health, and we've seen that here for a while, but nobody's really wanted to talk about it. All right, and going back to the NATO thing for just a minute, this is from our friends over at Hot Air. This was put out by David Strom. Canada has provided an object lesson in what NATO without us or the U.S. looks like. So now that how's that NATO preparing for U.S. exit strategy going exactly? Fine, as long as you believe that military power is no longer useful in the 21st century. And if you are a Euro weenie or aspire to be, you likely believe that all you need is softer, shall we say, limp power to get by. Deploy your soldiers in peacekeeping operations in places like Lebanon, where all you do is watch as Hezbollah lobs rockets at Israel and whine when Israel comes to do your job for you, which has been happening in real time, by the way. Canada, like other NATO allies, is rushing to prepare for a U.S. withdrawal from NATO. And why shouldn't they? They have been stabbing us in the back and in the front and in the sides, and they should expect Trump to treat them with the contempt that they have now earned. And just to give you context, here is Secretary of State, man of many hats, and occasionally a blonde wig when they were afraid he was going to have to be the new Attorney General. I said what I said.
And I've been a big supporter of NATO. And one of the reasons why I've been a supporter of NATO is because I believe that these basing rights give us leverage and give us flexibility and operational capability all over the world. But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in and say this is good for the United States. So all of that's going to have to be re-examined. All of it's going to have to be re-examined.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this full-throated and with all of my chest on the way out the door. We have now proven we don't need local basing anymore. We have technology and pilots now that are able to do 36 and 48-hour relay missions from here and go do everything that they need to do. So my opinion, if NATO is going to keep being NATO, is we scale back. How much military money could we save or repurpose into those longer range missions should the need arise if we weren't constantly keeping Europe free? Because look, let's face it, Europe's pretty much gone. And that's my final thought for the day. If you don't believe me, all you really need to do is look. They have officially been taken over by Islam. They are becoming caliphate, whether they want to be or not. And that is affecting all of their posture. So we have a decision to make. If they don't want us, and especially if they don't want to support us, while we're doing everything we can to make sure they don't glow in the dark, because it has just as much to do with them as it does us, then maybe we should be rethinking a lot of these different supposed partnerships, etc. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get out of here. Want to take a moment to again say thank you to everybody who's taken the time to hang out with us today. We're going to go out the same way we always come in. And since I didn't get to an hour two, and it doesn't really matter as much now, we're going to play the whole thing. And then I'll be back with you in about an hour, hopefully, with a Weekend News Roundup as soon as I confirm who's available. And once I know, you will know. It's just been one of those hectic days because I woke up to a ton of news. It's Friday, though. You made it. For those of you working for the weekend, you are officially there. And the funny thing is, when I had a Monday 9 to 5 kind of thing going on, I got to the point where I enjoyed Friday more than my weekend. Maybe that does make me a touch insane. Because by Saturday, I was already like, oh, dude, it's Saturday's almost over, and Sunday, and then Monday's coming. Remember the whole winter meme? Winter's coming. Yeah, that's how I felt every Saturday. Monday's coming. Anyway, we'll be back here in a little bit for the Weekend News Roundup. Then I'll be back later tonight for He Said, She Said with the lovely Aggie. And once I know what we're talking about there, you will know too. That's exactly what happened. I muted the cough earlier and forgot because I almost did it again. Bye, everybody. Whoops, that's not the right one. I think I caught it in time. And yes, before anybody says anything, I finally got my ears lowered. Forgot my camera was on. Bye, everybody.
Got a vendetta. Coffee tastes like bad decisions I ain't made yet. Boss man talking about we got her, and that means me, brother. Afraid I got a terminal case of the I don't want us. Mind checked out, heart ain't in the building. That second hand's crawling like it hates my guts. The man treating rich like it's a sin. Even God took a beat. So, suck it. Thank God it's Friday. Punching out loud. Hands in the air. Middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and the Barstool prayer. Take this job and shove it. I quit. 'Cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, working way. It ain't owning me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. HR in the break room sounding like a preacher, talking about culture smiles and being team players. Clipboard dreams on the fluorescent light, selling hours of my life just to make it to Friday night. Got dirt on my jeans, and grease on my hands, clock more overtime than quality plans. But when that bell rings, it's a holy sound. Feel like change hit the floor when it echoes around. I ain't lazy, I just work my fill. If rest is a sin, guess I always will. Thank God it's Friday, punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday. 'Cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, working way. It ain't on me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know. Boss can have Monday. God on Sunday. But Friday night's mine. I ain't giving it away. I earned this beer. I earned this pay. Earned every sip I'm about to take. Thank God it's Friday. Punching out alive. Hands in the air, middle finger to 9 to 5. Bill still waiting, but tonight I don't care. Cold beer sermon and a bar stool prayer. Take this job and shove it, I quit. Till Monday. 'Cause tonight I'm free. Yeah, working way. It ain't on me. So raise 'em up high. Let the whistle blow. Thank God it's Friday. That's all I know.
Say goodnight, Gracie.